previously on Ballz.
Because he's got a duck at 1:30 anyway. So let's Tank. Yours was the Paralympic pursuit of athletic greatness or technology Olympiad.
There was I must say there was some interesting debate. You probably think I worship the guy and he walks on, but Ross Tucker led this, and a lot of people came to the party about obviously when Oscar lost and his inopportune, his mistimed outburst afterwards about the length of the Brazilians' blades, that probably sparked some of the debate. But he almost got caught out by his own. He was allowed to compete with able-bodied because he got no advantage from his blades, and then ironically accused the person who beat him of having better blades than he has. And I think the point that Ross made, which I found quite interesting, is that it's perhaps no longer about athletic prowess. It's about who's got the best equipment, and therefore it turns into a race about money, and again, not athletic prowess. So it becomes about what you're wearing, and that then is about money, and that then takes out a massive proportion of the world's population, given that, let's say probably only 10 countries in the world can produce such equipment. So, to me, it looked like the Paralympics becoming more of a sort of a science Olympiad, and it's about technically what you can put on, what can help you. And I think it's just slightly sad. I also found the Paralympics bloody hard to follow, because there were so many classes, So you watch the swimming, and look, I did try and look into how they were classified, and they did give quite good reasons. But if you watch a dwarf swimming against a woman with no arms, so in the kicking, and it was a medley. In the first three laps were kicking, and the woman with no arms was leading comfortably. But then obviously it comes to crawl, and she doesn't have any arms, and it's good night nurse. And this dwarf from the UK came through and just absolutely got past her easily in the end. So I just thought it was quite a tricky thing to follow. One, because of the classifications. Two, because there's so many different classifications. And then I thought it was a lot more about the equipment that people are using rather than physical prowess.
Yeah.
I don't know how other people felt.
Well, let me just, before the other guys have a go, let me just say that I don't know what everybody says about the medley and the swimming and that kind of stuff, but I can tell you that we spoke to Adams van Dijk yesterday, and he was telling us about Alex Zanardi, who beat him. And
yes, another good point. I read that one.
Yeah. And how much or what a difference it made for Alex Zanardi having technology and Formula One technology and surplus amounts of cash behind him in order to make a bike that was, I think Adam said, 4 kilograms lighter than his, and such a difference that it makes.
Mm. Yeah, that was the other story that I was actually meant to bring up. You're so right. And, let's face it, they look like sour losers when they raise it. And, it's a little bit sad. But, Van Dijk has been one of the top athletes in his class for, a decade. And, it's quite, to my mind, and I could be completely wrong, it's quite clear that Zanardi's come in with better equipment, and that has aided his cause. And so where do you stop? Now that we've started down that avenue, how do you stop this? It's pretty damn difficult unless you're going to have standard issue blades, standard issue bikes, or I don't know, perhaps that is one answer to look at.
This isn't the first time that this problem's happened in the sporting arena, though, Tank, as well. I mean, you get technological debates constantly. I mean, if you look at swimming and all the amounts that have to wear, and they just everyone just comes to a consensus of what the equipment rules are. So I'm not sure. I think phrasing it as the Science Olympiad might be a tad on the harsh side, and maybe just comes to a time where they'll find a detente and come up where the rules will be.
But your point about swimming is a valid one, because exactly that. But now you have pre-suit records and post-suit records.
Absolutely.
And you're right. I mean, when Zelezny won the javelin, it was all about equipment. But hence my point, I was slightly tongue-in-cheek about having standard issue. I mean, perhaps it'll be very, very difficult, but perhaps there has to be a sort of norm as to what you can and can't use as a Paralympian.
Kennox, you wanted to say something?
I would.
I was saying time.
Yeah.
No, carry on, Sport Billy.
Okay, yeah, no, Tank, I agree with you there, man. I mean, I actually hadn't heard the Zanardi Ernst van Dijk story, but I mean, it smacks of kind of what everyone, or what a lot of people complain about with Formula One is that, when someone's got such a technological advantage, the best athlete or the best driver doesn't end up winning. I've got a problem with that. I think at Olympic level, it should be standardized. And something like in that class of the hand cycling or the kind of wheelchair events, I mean, it would be fairly easy to standardize, the vehicles that the guys used. And the same with the blades. If there was one blade that everyone had to use, there wouldn't be any of these debates. Obviously, blade length comes into it, but I mean, length is debated across many different things, huh?
In life.
Exactly. Sometimes you just have to say it's not fair.
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, not me, but yeah, you're right. Bounce, do you have anything to add?
I can't hear Sport Billy again. That's my first thing I got to add, so I'm feeling quite handicapped here.
Well, never mind, we won't go there.
I can't hear him at all either. It's total silence when the Nasla boy comes.
All right, it just means that a button on the other side of the desk isn't pushed. We'll sort that out. But, okay, Tank, we're going to let you go. Before we do, though, let's quickly deviate from blogz and just get your thoughts very, very briefly on the rugby for Saturday.
I think I think that the Boks will lose. I think it'll probably be tougher than people expect because it's just people get up for an All Black game. I'm just disillusioned with what Heineke is doing. I think he's sort of living in the past and trying to put a game plan that speaks to a massive pack that dominates physically, and we just don't have that at the moment. It'll be quite nice to see him doing something slightly different, like moving the point of contact slightly wider, employing a fetcher, which he is now doing. And try and run the guys around a bit instead of just doing one of those, close to first phase plays. So, I think that's my contribution to the discussion around the game plan. It would be, and just to bring in, I was chatting to Bob Skidstad last night. Obviously, he knows a thing or two about rugby.
You're chatting to him on your show?
Yes,
because then we don't want to hear about it. Cool, ladies and gentlemen, Tank Lanning joining us on blogz this afternoon. Tank, thanks so much, and we'll see you up in Joburg. Don't ever bring up your show again.
Leave it in Cape Town, buddy.
You guys all get a nasty dose of files,
yeah. All right, Tank. Thanks. No, but obviously we'll chat extensively before the game on Saturday. We're well into blogz. Tank Lanning's ducked, so we can start having some fun. We've got 3 topics left to go through. Let's just run through them again. Rugby players being played out of position, versatile or kiss of death. We've discussed that. How much would a T20 World Cup win alleviate past World Cup heartbreak? And then the winning topic this afternoon: what should the Bok game plan be in order to become the best?
What a topic!
Yeah, what a topic!
What a topic!
Billy, should we talk about yours?
Yeah, we'll move along swiftly, I think. But yeah, basically, mine's fairly short, but what I was thinking is, the one example in the Bok team that comes to mind now is poor old Patrick Lambie. The poor bugger can't get a game. He's played 80 minutes in 10 weeks. He's had an injury in there as well, but since joining the Boks, he's had 10 minutes of rugby in 6 weeks, which is just unbelievable when you think of the talent that the guy's got. And everyone says, the big problem with Lambie is that he's getting shunted around. At the Sharks, he's played fullback, he's played wing. He hasn't played wing for the Sharks, I don't think, but he's definitely played fullback, centre, and fly half. And even to this day, no one's quite sure of what his best position is. I quite like him at 10. But I'm kind of looking back. We don't want to end up with another Brent Russell. Russell himself ended up in a similar situation to Lambie, in that he was shifted between fly half. He played 4 tests at fly half, 8 at full back, and then, in fact, even more on the wing. He played 10 on the wing. And, he was a guy, he was hugely talented. And I always thought when I watched Brent Russell play that a team like Australia would have used that guy so much better than we did, and he was discarded fairly early on in his career, and never to be seen again. Playing in France for some lackluster team over there. And so the point is that I think it's about consistency. You look at a guy like Tano Manga. Tano started off on the wing. He played many years for the Hurricanes on the wing. He played for the All Blacks on the wing, and then he moved into 13 and he played there for the All Blacks and for the Canes, and then eventually ended up being the best 12 in the game at the time. And it's about a gradual progression, and as he matured, he developed into those roles. But the key to his success was that he was consistently selected in the position for a amount of time. So when he was playing wing, he was selected at wing. He wasn't shunted to from 12 to 14 to 11 to 13, constantly, which is what's happened to the likes of Russell and Ruan Pienaar, and obviously Frans Steyn to a degree as well. And
that's why I'm going to jump in, because what's the common denominator there? They're all Sharks players.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say they're all from the Free State.
No, they were all Sharks players, which means that you guys didn't want to do a talent, and you should give more players to province. I think that's what we're going to do something with that.
Oh, the provincial debates that divide our rugby.
Lambie's destined to be the new Province 10. I think that's what we all want in this country.
So what, would you pick him over Peter Grant?
Well, Peter Grant's like eating raw chicken in Japan.
Yeah, I just want to ask though, you look at how much of it is Heineken. I'm like doing a rugby panel here. How much of it is it Heineken's Meyer's game plan to play combinations that he knows though, which is why we don't see Lambie coming on, because he clearly believes in Morné Steyn, and he also believes in Kirshner at fullback. So yeah.
Okay.
No. So I want, it's more than a reluctance to play Lambie. It's a question of Heineken Meyer sticking with combinations and players that he knows probably from his Bulls days.
Yeah, I think he definitely would go for that. But I kind of understood that when he had to throw teams together to play England with all about 10 days to prepare. The guy's had a bit more time now. I think he can actually get away from his little training wheels and start riding like one of the big dogs now.
The key with me when it comes to switching the players around is let's look at Francois Hougaard for now. And just what is our plan for Francois Hougaard? I'm not talking 4-year plan, I'm talking like a 6-month plan. So we move him now to wing, and what's going to happen when he plays for the Bulls? Is that going to be scrum half? And if he's going to be scrum half with JJ Engelbrecht on the wing, that's just going to enhance my point, It's like if we don't have plans for these guys, how can they settle in these positions? I thought it was a brilliant topic by Billy, and it's one that gets me really angry, because I'm really not into the idea. I don't understand why we haven't learnt our lesson in terms of messing around young players in the back line. And we ask them to perform different roles, and then in the end they don't get settled, and then they leave, like a shadow of their own ability. Ruan Pienaar's come back, and any success he has been in spite of him being moved around, and as opposed to because of. The same could be said of Percy Montgomery years ago. I just think we need to protect these players to protect ourselves, quite frankly.
But here's a question: if you see that Hougaard is not coping at scrum half and that he's coming under pressure, why not then move him to the wing? If you feel that you can get something out of him there, and you feel that Ruan Pienaar can then add value at scrum half.
Well, my point is, if Hougaard's going to shift from wing to scrum half, I think he's better off just being dropped outright and identified as a scrum half. We develop outright wings for starters. I mean, there's a huge queue of wings in this country as well, if you look down the line. And we're pretty light in the scrum half department as well. So if we've identified Hougaard as a future scrum half, I think we must stick with it. If we now want to stick him to wing, then he must play wing week in and week out. And that goes on a franchise level as well. And if we can't get that understanding with everyone, the coaches, well, then we must just ditch the experiment.
Yeah, exactly. Or send him back to his province to go and, fine-tune his skills on the wing. And that would really help, because I think, like when we look at these players, we look at guys like Jacques Fourie, Jean de Villiers. They also started out wide, I mean, Fourie, I remember watching him play for Transvaal or the Lions as a, 19-year-old fullback. And I mean, he was a superb fullback, but obviously his kicking was letting him down a bit, and ended up getting moved to the wing, and then ultimately to 13, where he, is one of the world leaders there. But what I'm saying is that once he was moved, it was consistent. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Once they had decided, okay, this guy is not a fullback. I mean, apart from that one test, he ended up playing against the All Blacks at 15 in Rustenburg, which, you know, anything can happen in Rustenburg. You know, you've constantly seen the guy selected at 13. There's none of this moving around. And I'm starting to get the feeling old Yaku Tata's another one.
Yes.
You hear people saying, no, he's a better 13 than 15. But he's playing a lot of his rugby at 15. But, you know, if that's the case, then, I mean, we've got enough rugby brands in this country to be able to decide, okay, this guy's actually going to be better suited to this position. Stick him there, give him a couple of seasons there and see what he can do, you know. And I just think with Lambier, Ben, I agree with you. I think this whole bringing in Michalak story has cocked Lambier around immensely, because I can understand why the Sharks did it. They thought that Lambier was going to be, you know, the Springbok 10, I guess. And so they thought, well, we better bring in cover at 10 in the form of Michalak. And then you end up with potentially your second choice, Bok 10, playing most of his rugby at 15 for the last couple of months, which is not ideal. And already we're seeing suddenly Lambie's been spoken about as a specialist 15. You know, I see an article today with Heineke Meyer, and he doesn't even mention Lambie in the 10 debate. He just talks about Hussein and Mona Stan. So I fear that Pat's next step is out of the. I think they're going to end up throwing him off the bench even. You know what I mean?
You don't think it's a straight shoot? I mean, I know Heineke's obviously made it clear who he prefers to play at number 15 for the moment, but you don't think it's a straight shootout between Lambie as a 15 and Kirshner as a 15?
Listen, you know, guys have mentioned that Zane, you know, when you think of the sort of demographics of the team and all this, that Zane's got a shoe in there, and that's one of the reasons why he's playing. But, you know, I seriously don't buy that. You've got
Me neither.
Fantastic black talent in guys like Mvovo and even Sia Kolisi. I mean, there was a perfect opportunity. If you wanted to play a young, black, talented guy who really deserved his spot, you know, ahead of Jacques Potgieter, they should have taken Kolisi to Argentina, which they didn't.
Couldn't agree with you more, Billy. Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I think all the demographics debate is speculative at best, and I think we should. You know what I'm saying, you know? I don't buy
exactly. I mean, if they wanted numbers, then, you know, they would have just kept Mvovo on the wing and put Hougaard on the bench. Like,
exactly.
They don't have to play Hougaard at wing. You know, no one would have complained about that. He had a fairly average 5 tests in a row.
Bounce, anything to add before we move on?
Not really. I think the guys are nailing it quite well. The whole thing about everyone can do a little bit here and there, it doesn't help. And it just shows, I think, it comes back to my topic, is that your game plan isn't really defined well enough. You just kind of think, well, we'll somewhat put him there and hope for the best with the guys up front. You know, for me, it just says that going forward, you don't have many ideas or many aspirations of having any ideas. Like for me, if Hougaard's a great bench player, but like Meyer doesn't look like he sees the bench other than the place where the reserves sit. So, you know, you can't go from being not good enough for scrum half, but okay, we'll put you in the wing because the ball's not going to come to you. It's a cop-out selection.
It's confusing me, his use of the bench as well. It's because actually that was one of his trademarks when he was at the Bulls, is how he would use his bench in terms of impact players, you know? If you think of the way he used the likes of Derek Kuhn or Pedri Vandenberg, etc. And that just hasn't been translating into the national side. There was glimpses of it last Saturday, but nowhere near to the commitment that he showed the bench when he was successful. I actually don't understand why, to be honest.
Tay saying on Twitter, I'd say send Lambie back to the Sharks along with Keegan Daniel. At least they can play rugby. Anyway, okay, got to move on because it's already 5:45. Cricket. How much would a T20 World Cup win alleviate past World Cup heartbreak? We spoke to Telford Vice earlier this afternoon, and he said that it would absolutely alleviate past World Cup heartbreak. He said the Proteas desperately need to win a World Cup in some format.
Yeah, I think a lot of the point with that I was trying to look at is most of the kind of one-day hoodoos that has come from the 50-over tournament. I mean, that's where the real heartbreak has come from. And we seem to spend at least 5 minutes each week where we all talk about how meaningless T20 is to us. But when it comes to going to these knockout tournaments and doing these hoodoos, it means a lot to the players and it means a lot to the public in the reverse sense. Because, I mean, if we lose, I mean, if we lose in a very dramatic way in the semi-finals, I mean, there will be a lot of people in this country using the dreaded C word, you know. There'll also be a lot of people using the word choke. But like,
that's what I was thinking.
but they will, you know, and it affects all forms of our cricket as well. Not even the Test arena as well. When we saw Graham Swan and Matt Pryor getting close the other day in the third Test, there was a whole lot of panic from spectators and thinking, "Oh, here we go again," even though it was a completely different format.
Yeah.
So like, I just think for the fans and for the tournament, I think whereas we don't like this format so much, we all agree on that. We don't need to delve into that further. I do think this is really important for us and the players themselves.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think any win is good. I don't think it would alleviate past performances, but
No.
it would be a step in the right direction. You know, I mean, we haven't. What did we win? The 1996 Heroes Cup.
Mike Grindle and Daryl Cullinan opening the batting.
I mean, you know, we need a little bit more than that.
Absolutely.
And as paltry as the bloody T20 World Cup is, at least it can go in the cabinet. Huh?
Yeah. Bounce?
Well, exactly. I think it's all part of a process, as Yuri Roo always says. So if we get the process right, I think the guy just needs a bit of belief. I've been reading that Tim Goodenough book, and he talks about just generally getting to that point where you're using the right sort of mindset to win these things. A win here will definitely help, and I think just get some people off their back. Once our guys get relaxed, I think the potential will come through.
Yeah, I must say I agree with that. I think, albeit, a win is a win, and if you can take a 2020 World Cup win, hopefully it's a knock-on effect, and it leads us to that elusive 50-over World Cup win.
Because that's the big one. Do we all agree that that's the big one that we want? Even though we get bored by the 50-over stuff, we need that tournament one in our life.
Listen, the recipe's there for everyone. You know, if everyone would just buy a bloody copy of Mr. Player's book called Don't Choke,
that's right.
We wouldn't have this problem in the
Amen,
first
brother.
Exactly.
I thought we were going to have an episode without Mr. Player, but any comes.
Don't be silly. Okay, guys, I think we're all in agreement there. Let's get on to the last topic. Sorry, it's a bit rushed, but we've just want to leave enough time for it. And we get back to rugby, and I'm sure some of the stuff that we mentioned, talking about players being played out of position, will pop up here in Bounce's topic. What should the Bok game plan be in order to become the best? Bounce, I think you can kick. Well, actually,
Simon, I've got to say, I put this out there because I just wanted to win, and secondly, I put this out there so I could hear Tank. So I could hear Tank wax lyrically in circles about game plans. I think this is a big myth that we all go on about. No one actually really knows what the game plans really are. Like, what's New Zealand's game plan? They run it. Okay, cool. That's not hard. What's our game plan? We don't run it. So I just wanted to hear Tank get all technical with this kind of stuff and then poke fun at him, really. I was trying to find holes in the story.
But you're making a mockery of blogz, Bounce.
I am making a mockery of this a little bit, I will admit.
And I don't appreciate that. And when Darren comes back, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, bro.
Simon, I don't care if you're a tone there, because these of them are going to other shows and talking about other shows while on your show.
No, well, that's also going to get him severely reprimanded.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, though, I think people make so much of this whole game plan thing right now. But like, what are the fundamentals that break down? You know, so as soon as we isolate that, it's like, are we putting enough emphasis on the breakdown? No. Okay, great. So that must become part of the game plan. You know, are we looking to win up front, like Tank said? No, then that is part of the game plan. I think when it comes to being expansive and all that kind of stuff, that could be our game plan. But if you're getting drilled, if you're getting a tight head against you every like 2 minutes, the ball's never going to go wide anyway. So I just wanted to get more sort of discussion around this whole game plan thing and what the urgency is.
I think if we look at it simply, and tell me whether you agree or not, it's when people talk about the game plan, I think the majority of people look at it and they say, when we do have the ball, when we do have potentially good go forward ball, we're kicking it away. That's rather than spreading it wide or taking it up, the scrummy or the fullback will put it up in the air, and we rely on the chasers to win the ball back for us, or hope for a knock on, and then take it from there, which hasn't been working, which I think is what's annoying people at the moment. I think when you talk about the game plan, I think the majority of people see that as the game plan.
We do create.
So it's more territorial than possession based, essentially.
Yeah, it seems like it's kick and hope.
Well, that's the thing is, you know, like you didn't hear too many complaints when the game plan won us, you know, the Tri-Nations in 2009, was it? You know, it was basically the same kind of thing. We had but it was just implemented, better by players like Free Dupree kicking from the base. I mean, at that stage, he was the top scrummy in the world. And his kicks were accurate, and the guys were chasing properly. We had guys like Skalk and Joan Smith and the guys chasing up. And it won us games. And you certainly didn't hear as many people talking about our game plan. The Aussies and the New Zealanders and the English were shouting off the rooftops, saying the boring box, But, I think what's changed is times have changed. People have worked that out. And I also think we don't have the players. Heineke thinks we do have the players to implement that game plan. I don't think we do. Free Dupree was in a class of his own, He was a decision maker, probably the only guy in world rugby at the time who was the decision maker at scrum half, where the rest of the teams have the decision maker at fly half. We don't have that anymore. We need to adapt and we need to change that. You can't expect Free Dupree to be Francois Hougaard or Ruan Pienaar to be a Free Dupree. It's just not going to happen. And I think, we've seen some fantastic rugby in Super Rugby. Apart from watching the Stormers, but we've seen some great tries scored, and we've got the players. I don't think it's a selection issue. I think. Yeah, we just, Heineke, he's not a stupid man, but, this insistence that this is the way we're going to do it is starting to wear people's passions thin.
I think a lot of the public get kind of, not carried away, but I think they get obsessed when we speak of game plans and what the Springboks play with, when we go with, is it conservative or is it expansive? And they want to really black and white it like that. I think there's other moments that, they certainly irritate me away from when we kick the ball. And how we go about it in the game. I don't like the way that our forwards take contact. If we're going to take crash ball all the time, I think there has to be the odd occasion where the guys try to run into space, or at least try to offload occasionally. I'm not talking about the sunny ball under the legs job. I'm just trying to get it to a man to keep some momentum going. Whereas at the moment, I don't see that happening, and that irritates me.
Or pass the ball to a decision maker at 10. We have Willem Alberts or Itzebeth or one of these guys standing there. And I mean, as the opposition, you know exactly what's happening.
Yeah, you just put 3 tacklers on him, and then he's down. Job done. Tackling is better at this form of the game.
The Aussies have got a Quade Cooper, or in the old days a Matt Giteau, and the New Zealanders have got Dan Carter, where he's offloading to the big runners coming off his shoulder, and that was one of the points old Mallet stressed is. Give the ball to the guy that makes the decision, not to a guy that's just going to crash it up.
Yeah. So my point being is there's still ways to hone this and play conservatively where we can improve a lot. I'm not saying that we'll take the All Blacks doing it, but it's just I don't think the country should just go crazy wanting us to all swing it side to side in our own 22 kind of deal. It's just there's ways to hone how we play the way we play, and that's one area that we can be focusing on.
Bounce, final say?
I think you guys make a very good point as far as one of the things I did want to get out of this topic was a very simple game plan that we should be implementing. Now, what you guys just said there made perfect sense to the most layman of rugby fan, is that when the ball comes back, the big guy got it, he's going to go straight at you, you can defend it. If we've got a fly-off who's going to mix it up a little bit, I think Gerson can be this guy, you can sow that seed of doubt. So you'll have Alberts and you'll have whoever next to him, but he might get it, he might not get it, and suddenly the guys have really got to adapt. And with quick ball, and runners like that, I think we really will be formidable, and it won't take a big change. As Sean said, it's not like a huge thing, but a small improvement.
Look, one thing Heineke isn't used to is he's not used to having a forward pack that doesn't dominate for the last few years, and we're not used to having line-up or not go our own way all the time. Is one thing that hasn't happened. If that happens, we could still see these changes happen a bit, I think.
And also this rubbish about that the team's so inexperienced. I do agree, it's a lot more inexperienced than our team a year ago. But if you look at the test caps that they go on about so much, there's 480 odd test caps. That's more than the guys that beat New Zealand and Australia in 2005, 2004, 2008. You know what I mean? It's not that inexperienced.
It's almost 5 times as many who won the 1995 World Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, sorry, we're going to have to wrap it up there. It's 4 minutes to, and we've got to hand over to the AFM guys down in Cape Town. So, apologies. Blogz did start a little late today. We tried to get hold of Darren, but that was unsuccessful. So, apologies for that. But thanks again, as always, for your contributions.
Oh, pleasure, Simon. I think next time Tank Landing can take less of the spotlight as well.
Mondays to Fridays live on Ballz.co.za. Ballz.co.za.